I never thought I'd be the guy telling this kind of story. You hear about it happening to other people, some wild, screwed up betrayal that makes you rethink everything, but you never think it'll be your life unraveling like a badly written soap opera. And yet, here I am, writing this out, hoping that getting it down will make it all make sense. So let me take you back to where it all started. Senior year of high school, parking lot after school, me standing next to my dad's old '72 Chevelle that he finally let me take to prom. My date? Well, she had just texted me that she got back with her ex-classic high school drama. I was standing there, trying to decide whether to just go home and drown my sorrows in Call of Duty, when I saw her, Ava. She was pacing near the entrance, looking pissed off and a little desperate. Turned out her ride ditched her last minute, and her phone had just died because, well, 2014 iPhones had the battery life of a wet paper towel. I don't know what made me do it, but I offered her a lift. She hesitated, glanced at my car, and said, "You drive a '72 Chevelle and you're standing here like getting ditched is the worst thing that happened today?" That was it. That was the moment. We ended up going to prom together. And it was hands down the best night I could have asked for. No drama, no expectations, just two people thrown together by coincidence, vibing to bad music and making fun of the overpriced decorations. Fast forward through college, we did long distance. She went to a university in another state. I went to a tech school closer to home. But we made it work. Weekend visits, late-night gaming sessions, and long phone calls that stretched till sunrise. She was my person. No doubt about it. And then there was Leo. Met him my first year of college. We clicked instantly, same major, same love for motorcycles, same taste in music. The dude had this beat-up Yamaha R6 that barely ran, and fixing it up became our weekend project. After graduation, we took the crazy leap of starting our own IT consulting firm instead of selling our souls to corporate jobs. Everyone thought we were nuts, but Ava supported us 100%. She was grinding at some marketing job but still brought us coffee and takeout during our all-nighters, even helped us build our first client website when we couldn't afford to hire anyone. The first 2 years were rough, barely scraping by, working out of my garage, but she never complained. Never made me feel like I was failing. And then, things took off. A few big clients, a proper office space, and suddenly, life was good. Ava got promoted at work. I upgraded from my beat-up Honda to a brand new Harley, and we moved in together. It felt like everything was falling into place. And then Mia entered the picture. Leo met her at some industry conference, and she came in like a hurricane, sharp, confident, talking big about branding, networking, and social influence. At first, she was just another face in our extended circle, but then she and Ava started hanging out more. That's when things started changing. Ava stopped wearing my old band t-shirts to bed, stopped gaming with me at night, said she was investing in herself and elevating her presence. She started attending these networking events Mia recommended, buying expensive clothes she never would have looked twice at before. At first, I brushed it off, people evolve, right? But then she started talking differently, like she was reading straight from one of Mia's self-help books. And the worst part? She started looking at me differently, like I was part of an old life she was trying to grow out of. At first, I thought it was just a phase. But then came Leo and Mia's engagement. They decided to throw this big, fancy dinner party on Valentine's Day to announce it. That should have been my first clue. I didn't know it then, but that night was going to wreck everything. The Valentine's party was set for 7 p.m. at some upscale rooftop venue downtown. Not exactly our usual scene. Normally, we'd be stuffing our faces with pizza and playing some co-op game until midnight. But Mia had taken charge, and suddenly, we were dressing up like we were auditioning for a reality show. Ava spent the entire afternoon getting ready. And I mean entire afternoon. For hours locked in the bathroom, curling her hair, fixing her makeup, trying on dress after dress. When she finally stepped out, she was wearing this deep burgundy dress, tight, expensive-looking, and definitely designed to turn heads. I had never seen her wear anything like that before. New dress? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. She flicked her hair over one shoulder. Mia helped me pick it out. Do you like it? It was less of a question and more of a test. I could feel it. Like I was supposed to give the right answer. Yeah, I said. Looks nice. She smirked like she knew I was holding back and then turned back to the mirror, fixing her lipstick one last time. I rode my bike to work that day since the weather was decent, so we had to take her car to the party. The entire ride there, she barely spoke, glued to her phone, tapping away like whatever was happening on screen was 10 times more important than me sitting next to her. I should have known then. The second we stepped into the party, it was like I stopped existing. Ava barely even acknowledged me before making a beeline for Leo. She draped herself into their conversation like she belonged there, laughing at every word, leaning in just a little too close, twirling her hair around her finger. Leo, for his part, looked uncomfortable. He kept glancing at me like he wasn't sure what the hell was going on. And then there was Mia, standing off to the side, watching it all with this unreadable little smile, like she had just won some kind of bet. The whole night felt off. At dinner, the weirdness ramped up. The table was set up with assigned seats, but somehow, Ava had managed to swap them, so she was next to Leo instead of me. I got stuck between some finance guy I'd never met and Mia, who spent the entire meal asking pointed questions about my business, my ambitions, and where I saw myself in 5 years. Meanwhile, Ava was practically feeding Leo from her plate. I clenched my jaw, kept my head down, and forced myself to focus on my food, but every single touch, every little flirtatious giggle, was like a slow burn under my skin. Then came the moment that changed everything. Ava accidentally knocked over her wine glass, spilling red liquid all over her dress. She gasped dramatically, dabbing at it with her napkin. "Leo, can you help me clean this up?" It wasn't a request. It was an invitation. Leo hesitated, glancing between me and Mia like he knew this was a trap. But before he could respond, Mia leaned back in her chair, sipping her champagne like she was watching a show. "You should help her, babe." And just like that, the trap snapped shut. Leo stood up, and Ava practically dragged him toward the kitchen. I sat there, fingers gripping my fork so tightly my knuckles went white. No way this is what I think it is. Chris, one of my oldest friends, nudged me under the table. "Dude," he muttered, low enough that only I could hear. "You're not going to go check on that?" I exhaled slowly, counting to 10 in my head before pushing my chair back and making my way toward the kitchen. The moment I pushed open the door, I felt the coldest kind of rage settle into my bones. Ava had Leo pinned against the counter, her hands on his chest, her voice pitched high and sweet. "You ever wonder what it would have been like if we met first?" Leo looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. His hands were gripping a handful of paper towels like they were his last lifeline. I stepped inside, my voice eerily calm. "What the hell is this?" Ava spun around, eyes wide, but the guilt on her face lasted barely a second before she went on the attack. "Oh my God. Are you spying on me now?" My pulse pounded in my ears. "Spying?" I repeated, my voice dangerously low. "You dragged my best friend into the kitchen, practically throwing yourself at him, and I'm the bad guy for not ignoring it?" She scoffed, flipping her hair. Well, this is exactly what Mia was talking about. You're so insecure it's pathetic." Leo didn't say a word. He just stared at the floor, looking more miserable than I'd ever seen him. I clenched my fists at my sides, my entire body thrumming with the kind of rage that made everything feel sharp and clear. I wasn't going to do this. Not here. Not like this. I turned on my heel and walked out, past the dining room, where everyone was pretending not to notice the explosion happening in the kitchen, past the couples whispering to each other behind their hands. I heard her heels clicking behind me as she ran to catch up. "Ethan, wait." But I didn't wait. I didn't even look at her. I just walked straight out into the cold February air, climbed onto my bike, and took off. She sent me a text at 3 a.m. Staying at Mia's. Don't wait up. Like what I just saw was nothing. Like she hadn't just torched 10 years of history between us in the span of a single evening. I didn't reply. I didn't call. I just sat in my brother's garage at 4 a.m., hands covered in grease, staring at my phone like it was a bomb waiting to go off. Somewhere in my gut, I knew this wasn't over. This was just the beginning. For 2 weeks, I went dark. No calls. No texts. No explanations. I crashed at my brother's place, sleeping on his worn-out couch in his basement, where the only light came from his old gaming setup. He didn't ask many questions, just handed me a controller and let me drown myself in late-night matches, energy drinks, and silence. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed nonstop. Ava's messages started off demanding, "Where the hell are you? Stop being childish." Then softened, "I miss you, baby. Let's just talk." Then twisted into anger, "You're being dramatic." Nothing even happened. I ignored every single one. The worst part wasn't the texts. It was the doubt. The slow, creeping thoughts that wormed their way in late at night when I couldn't sleep. Had I overreacted? Was this just some screwed-up test, some messed-up mind game Ava thought would push me to prove something? Or had she really meant it? Meant every single calculated touch, every lingering glance, Every too sweet laugh she threw in Leo's direction? I didn't have answers. Just questions that gnawed at me. Then, one afternoon, I wrapped up work early and decided, screw it. I need to go home. I need to face this. I didn't tell Ava. I wanted to see things as they were, not as she prepared them to be. Riding my bike through the city felt good. The cold February air burned my face, cleared my head, made me feel like I was awake for the first time in days. By the time I pulled up to our apartment complex, I was almost ready to talk, almost ready to listen. Then I saw his truck. Leo's lifted black F-150, parked right in my spot. For a second, I sat there, gripping my handlebars so tight I thought they might snap. Maybe there was a good reason. Maybe Leo was just checking on Ava. Maybe. No, I already knew. I still had my key. When I walked inside, the first thing I heard was music. Not just any music. Our playlist. The one Ava made for our first anniversary, the same one we used to play on long road trips. The one with all those cheesy songs she swore she hated but never skipped. The second thing I heard was laughter. Hers. And his. The apartment wasn't big. Just one bedroom, an open kitchen, a living space. It didn't take long to find them. Ava was sitting on the couch, curled up against Leo like they'd been doing this forever. She was barefoot, wearing that dress, the burgundy one from the Valentine's party. The one she wore when she tried to seduce my best friend in someone else's kitchen. They were drinking wine, sharing some fancy cheese platter like they were in a goddamn romance movie. Leo saw me first. He jumped up so fast he nearly knocked over the table. Ethan. I didn't hear whatever excuse he had lined up. Ava turned, her expression frozen somewhere between shock and guilt. But she covered it fast, too fast. Oh my God. You're back. Like I was the one who had just walked into her home unannounced. I stared at her. At them. At the whole twisted picture of what used to be my life. Then I turned and walked out. She ran after me, her bare feet slapping against the hallway floor. Ethan, wait. It's not what it looks like. I stopped at the elevator, jaw tight, hands curled into fists at my sides. Tell me, I said, my voice calm in a way that scared even me. Tell me what exactly this is. She hesitated. We were just talking. Right. I nodded, looking her up and down. That's why you're wearing that dress. That's why you've got our playlist on. That's why he's sitting on my couch, drinking my wine. Her lips parted, searching for some excuse, some twisted way to make this my fault. I just needed closure. I let out a short laugh. Closure? You don't need to dress up for closure, Ava. She reached for my arm, eyes glassy with fake tears. Please, Ethan. I can explain. I stepped back before she could touch me. No, you can't. The elevator dinged open, and I walked inside without looking back. That was the moment something in me snapped. Ava wasn't the person I thought she was. Maybe she never had been. And Leo? He wasn't my best friend. He was nothing. By the time I hit the ground floor, I had already blocked both of their numbers. This was war. By the time I got back to my brother's place, my phone was already lighting up with messages from Ava. I didn't read them. Didn't need to. I knew the pattern by now. First, she'd try to deny. Then, she'd try to justify. And when that failed, she'd flip the script, twisting everything so that somehow I was the bad guy. I tossed my phone onto the counter, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and cracked it open. Bad? My brother asked from the couch, not even looking up from his game. I exhaled sharply. Worse. He paused the game and turned to face me. You want to talk about it? Nope. That was the thing about my brother. He never pushed. He just nodded, went back to his game, and let me sit there in silence, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of what the hell had just happened. I should have been angry. Should have wanted to punch a hole through the drywall. But all I felt was nothing. Like the part of me that cared had just been cut out. And then, the real damage started. The next day, people started acting weird. Clients who used to be eager to work with me were suddenly reevaluating their options. Friends I'd known for years weren't returning my calls. Even at the office, I could feel people whispering. Something was wrong. I found out what later that night when Chris, one of the only people still talking to me, sent me a screenshot. Ava had started posting vague, carefully worded stories about how she had just gotten out of a toxic relationship and how she was finally learning to heal. She never mentioned me by name, but she didn't have to. People ate it up. Then, she took it a step further. She started telling people that I was controlling, that I was insecure, that I didn't let her have male friends, that I checked her phone, that I was emotionally unstable and prone to jealousy-fueled outbursts. It was like watching someone rewrite my life, twisting everything until I became a villain in a story that wasn't even real. And the worst part? People believed her. Some friends, people I had known for years, straight up cut me off without even asking for my side. Clients started pulling out of deals. Even my own mom called me, asking if I needed to talk to someone about my anger issues. I almost laughed when she said that. My anger issues. All because Ava needed to cover her tracks. But the worst betrayal? The one that really made my stomach turn? Leo stayed silent. He didn't defend me. Didn't tell people the truth. He let her burn my reputation to the ground while he stood in the background, pretending to be an innocent bystander. I spent the next week trying to put out the fires Ava had started. I sent emails to clients, reassuring them. Had to sit through awkward conversations with business partners who didn't want to outright say they thought I was a liability, but were clearly worried. I even considered getting lawyers involved. But then, something happened that changed everything. One night, I was at the office late, trying to fix the mess Ava had made, when my work Discord blew up. Chris had tagged me in a group chat. Dude, check this out. Now, I almost ignored it. I was exhausted, drained. But something about the urgency made me click. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. It was a forwarded email. From Mia. The same Mia who had orchestrated this entire mess. And it was a confession. Mia had written out everything. How she had planned the loyalty test to see if Leo would cheat before their wedding. How she had coached Ava for months, feeding her lies about me, making her believe she was settling for a lesser life when she could have more. How she had manipulated Ava into throwing herself at Leo just to see what he would do. The email included screenshots, texts between Mia and Ava, messages where Mia was directing Ava like this was some kind of sick social experiment. Mia, you really think Ethan is ambitious enough? Look at Leo. He's got real potential. He's going places. Ava, Ethan's building his own business, though. Mia, because of Leo. Leo is the real brains behind it. You know that, right? Ava, I guess. Mia, you deserve someone who elevates you, who pushes you to be more. It went on. And then, there was the kicker. Mia had encouraged Ava to wear that dress, had suggested the wine spill, had told Ava exactly how to act, what to say, what to do to make the setup feel real. Mia had never expected Ava to actually catch feelings for Leo. That was the part that backfired. Ava was supposed to pretend. Instead, she believed it. She started to think Leo was the better option, that she deserved him, that I had been nothing more than some phase in her life she needed to outgrow. And the only reason Mia's confession came to light? Leo found the texts on her phone. He confronted her. She panicked. And in a desperate attempt to save her own ass, she blasted out the full truth to everyone before Leo could. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling something inside me crack. All the friends who had ghosted me, they were in that group chat. All the people who had believed Ava's lies, they were reading the same confession I was. And suddenly, my phone was blowing up again. But this time, it wasn't accusations. It was apologies. People begging me to understand, to forgive them for believing the wrong person, telling me they should have asked me first, that they never should have assumed. I didn't respond to any of them. I just leaned back in my chair, exhaled slowly, and smiled for the first time in weeks. Because now, the truth was out. And I wasn't the one who had to burn for it. The truth was out, but that didn't mean the damage had been undone. Sure, people were apologizing. Clients were reconsidering. Old friends were crawling back, trying to patch things up with half-assed excuses like, I just didn't know what to believe, man, or Ava sounded so convincing. None of it mattered. You don't get to set fire to someone's life and then show up with a bucket of water after the house is burned down. I ignored most of them. Instead, I focused on one thing, cutting out the rot. First was Ava. She texted, called, even showed up at my office, wearing an oversized hoodie, the same kind she used to steal from my closet, and carrying 2 cups of coffee, like she could just waltz back in and hit reset. Ethan, please. She started the moment she saw me, her voice thick with fake remorse. I messed up. I let Mia get in my head. But I never meant for things to go this far. I leaned back in my chair, looking at her like I was studying an insect under a microscope. You never meant for things to go this far? She nodded quickly, like she thought she had a shot at convincing me. It was just. Mia manipulated me. She made me think I wanted something else. But I don't. I want us. I stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled through my nose. Ava, do you even hear yourself? You threw away 10 years for a loyalty test that wasn't even about you. You believed some chick you barely knew over the guy who's been with you through everything. She swallowed, eyes glistening like she was about to cry. I wasn't thinking straight. No, you were thinking exactly straight, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You saw the option Mia dangled in front of you, and you wanted it. You chose to believe her. You chose to betray me. And now, because it didn't work out the way you thought it would, you want to come running back. She opened her mouth, probably ready with another excuse, but I cut her off before she could speak. You weren't played, Ava. You weren't tricked. You saw a chance to trade up, and you took it. And the worst part? You didn't even realize that what we had was already enough. I stood up, walking past her toward the door. Now get out. She made a small, choked sound. Ethan, please. I turned, my expression cold. Ava, get out. She flinched. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I saw it in her face, the realization. The understanding that this wasn't some argument she could fix with a few tears and an apology. She had lost me. Completely. Without another word, she turned and walked out. That was the last time I ever saw her. But the cleanup wasn't over. Next, there was Leo, the man who had once been my best friend. The guy I had built a business with. I wish I could say I met up with him for some dramatic confrontation, but the truth is, I didn't need to. Leo knew he had screwed up. He tried to call me, left me long-winded voicemails filled with regret and self-pity. Man, I should have told you. I just didn't know how to handle it. I didn't want to mess things up. I never meant for any of this to happen. The last voicemail was different. Shorter. Just one sentence. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope you find peace, man. I didn't call him back. Instead, I made a different call, to our lawyers. Splitting the company was the only logical move. There was no coming back from this. We worked through the legalities, cut our contracts down the middle, and walked away from what we had built together. Leo moved to another city. I heard he started a new company, but I didn't care enough to check how it was going. The final piece of the puzzle? Mia. Her confession had already wrecked her reputation. She and Leo had broken up before their wedding, and she had lost everything. Her credibility, her industry contacts, and whatever social clout she had been trying to build. I didn't waste my energy on her. Some people aren't worth the effort of revenge. She was one of them. Instead, I focused on what mattered. My business. My future. My life. I rebuilt my company stronger than before. The drama actually helped in the long run. Clients respected the fact that I had handled things professionally, and I even landed a few new contracts from people who liked the way I handled the fallout. And personally, well, one night, after a long workday, I found myself at a local biker meet, just trying to clear my head. That's when I saw her. Emma. She was leaning against a matte black Sportster 883, adjusting her gloves, her hair tied back in a loose ponytail. Most girls at bike meets were just there to take pictures with their boyfriends' rides. Not Emma. She rode. I struck up a conversation, expecting the usual small talk. Instead, she started breaking down her bike's camshaft upgrades like she was born in a garage. I laughed for the first time in months. We talked for hours. She used to work in tech before she switched gears and opened her own gym. Coded her own website, built her own booking system, badass all around. I asked if she wanted to grab a coffee sometime. She smirked. Only if we ride there. And that was it. Ava had been my past. Emma, she was something real. And this time, I wasn't settling for less. Life didn't just snap back to normal after everything. It took time, months of rebuilding, cutting out dead weight, and figuring out who I was outside of the wreckage that Ava and Mia left behind. But for the first time in years, I wasn't weighed down by someone else's expectations. I wasn't compromising, wasn't second-guessing myself, wasn't adjusting who I was to fit into someone else's narrative. I was just living. Business was thriving. Clients who had wavered in the aftermath of Ava's smear campaign came back, some even apologizing outright. One guy admitted he had initially believed her, but later realized that the whole thing didn't add up. Should have trusted my gut, man. Lesson learned. Yeah, lesson learned. As for the people who had jumped ship without a second thought, I let them stay gone. If their loyalty was that flimsy, I didn't need them in my life. Leo was officially out of the picture. He moved across the country, trying to start fresh, but from what I heard through mutual acquaintances, things weren't going great for him. Turns out, when you spend years building a company with someone who actually has vision, it's hard to do it all over again alone. Mia? She went radio silent. She tried making a comeback in the networking world, but her reputation was torched. No one wanted to work with someone who had orchestrated a psychological warfare experiment on her own fiancé. And Ava? I didn't hear from her again. Not directly, at least. Every now and then, someone would mention her in passing. She had bounced between a few different jobs, trying to find her footing after her corporate networking dreams crumbled. She had become exactly what she accused me of being stuck. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so sad. But the best part? I didn't care anymore. I had something better. Emma and I had been seeing each other for a few months when she surprised me with something that made me stop dead in my tracks. We were in my garage, her hands smudged with grease as she helped me swap out a busted throttle cable on my bike. She had picked up a decent amount of maintenance skills, but there were still things she wanted to learn. Unlike Ava, she wasn't pretending. She actually wanted to know. She wiped her hands on a rag and smirked. I've been thinking. You ever consider getting into track riding? I blinked. What, like racing? She shrugged. More like pushing limits. Getting better. I've been training with some people at the track. I think you'd like it. A challenge. An invitation. I grinned. All right. Let's do it. A week later, we were out on the track, suited up, engines roaring, adrenaline pumping. She led at first, carving perfect lines, her body leaning into every turn like she was part of the machine. And me? I chased. Not because I had to catch up, not because I had something to prove, but because, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't being held back. I was moving forward. And this time, I was riding with someone who actually kept up.